everyone, it's Shel from Paper Rock TO Studio, and today I'm going to share with you a mixed media altered tag that I made. This is one of those large tags that I was talking about yesterday on my 3K giveaway. I decided to try them out and see what it's like. So I belong to a couple different Facebook groups. One of them is Tag It Tuesday. It is a monthly challenge group where Sherry, one of my friends, she has a challenge, and this month the challenge is to use the secondary colors on the wheel, which are violet, orange, and green. And so my tag is going to be predominantly those colors because that's the challenge. Another group that I belong to on Facebook is 12 Months of Mermaids, and so I'm going to make a mermaid because I haven't even made a mermaid for a while in that group. And that one doesn't have a challenge. It's just make a mermaid, post it to the group. So I will put the links to both of those groups on Facebook down in the description below, that box below the video that says see more. I will put the links down there if you'd like to join either of those groups. So the first thing I did with my extra large tag is I put some gesso on it and dried that, and then I collaged on some tissue paper, and I collaged it pretty heavily. I didn't leave any spaces. I wanted design all over the tag, and so that tissue paper is from Hazel and Ruby. I think it's a company. It's like a big tube of tissue paper specifically for collaging and crafting, and so I used that, and I used the liquid matte medium. Then I have out my Dylusions paints, and I used a baby wipe to apply green and purple Dylusions paint across the tag. And then I'm using a couple different stencils to remove some of the paint while it's still wet to let the design show through. Also, by putting it on with a baby wipe instead of putting it on with a brush or my fingers, it's a thinner layer and more blendy. And I can still see the design of the tissue paper through the color. Then I decided since this is just a first layer, it was a bit too bright, so I'm using my 2-inch brayer. It's a Speedball soft rubber brayer to apply some gesso. And then I gave everything a really good dry and started doing my mermaid. Of course, you don't have to draw a mermaid for this group. You can use a coloring book or a stamp or, whatever, some sort of collage situation, whatever you want to make the mermaids. I'm drawing this one, and I'm using my Stabilo All pencil. I don't use it that often for drawing because, of course, it's water soluble, and so when I go put anything on it, it's going to smear. But it does give a nice black line, and over this background I thought it would be nice to draw with that today. I just thought it would be nice. So I'm drawing my mermaid. I saw on Pinterest a picture of a mermaid holding a heart, and that is what inspired this. I have no idea where the picture came from. It was just something that came across my feed on Pinterest that somebody had pinned, and I said, oh, that would be cute to have the mermaid holding a heart. And then in that way, it covers up her, boobies, which would not be covered by shells. They would be, naked. So there's always that dilemma. Do you make them naked and then someone says, oh my gosh, you've had nudity, and fusses about it, or do you cover them up with something? So I thought, well, if she's holding that heart like that, then that's cute, and it covers up those parts of her body, and then I don't have to fuss about whether somebody's going to get mad if I draw naked boobies. So I put the heart in her hand. Then that spot down at the bottom there was kind of blank because I didn't do a good job of planning my drawing and making it fit the tag better. So I drew a little seahorse down there. Of course, it's not a little seahorse. It would be, if you really thought about proportion, if it was not just a fantasy drawing and you were thinking about proportions, supposedly mermaids are the size of humans, and seahorses are teeny, teeny, tiny little creatures, so there's no way that they would be that close in size. Completely not right. But it doesn't matter. It's just a fantasy drawing. It's just for fun. So I didn't want a whole bunch of smeary black everywhere on my thing, and I knew that that would happen when I started to paint. So I decided to use some liquid matte medium and to just go over all my lines and, you know, kind of seal them a little bit so that they just wouldn't keep smearing into my paint as I started to paint my picture. This is gesso. I've got a little teeny tiny brush because her face is so tiny. I should have made her bigger and then her face wouldn't be so tiny. I don't know why I keep drawing things that are so tiny. It's just silly. It's just silly. But I'm just using some white gesso to go over her face and her skin to give me a base of a lighter color for those portions of the mermaid. So just a first layer. It's not real smooth. This brush is tiny and it's leaving little streaks, but it doesn't really matter. I'm doing this to give a base layer for her skin that I'm going to color later. Most of the rest of this video is me coloring her, or painting actually. It's not coloring, it's painting. I'm using the Dylusion's paints for the whole thing. So yeah, Dylusion's paints, lots of them. They're getting a little bit gloppy. As you see me putting them on to my palette here, which I probably should put a new piece of paper on there because it's looking pretty dirty and you can't really see. Some of my Dylusions are almost completely, like the purple and the pink, they're very solid and pretty much ruined at this point. But I just still keep using them. So to make the skin, I used orange and then the white gesso that's on there and then a teeny tiny bit of that bubblegum pink and blended those together to make kind of a peachy color. Not going for a super realistic color of skin, but that's pretty close. I'm going to end up adding more pink into it in places and adding a little bit of yellow into it and making it, you know, have more variation and highlights and dark spots and things like that. But that's a good base color. And then I'm just kind of mixing and blending. Of course, the challenge is to use orange, green, and purple. So having pink and turquoise and yellow as well. But I didn't want to just stick to those three colors. I wanted a little bit more. But I guess I could have just used the gesso and the orange to make skin tone, but it looked better with warming it up with a little bit of that pink. And I didn't use very much pink, just for a few highlights of color. So I end up putting on more than one layer of paint. This is just the first layer. The Dylusion's paint, it's opaque, but it's thin. So if I blend, then it becomes translucent a little bit, and so I need to put a second layer on. I don't know. It's got something else in it, some kind of a binding agent that's different than what I'm used to. But it's really great for a lot of effects that you can do with it. So one thing that you guys who know about color theory know, if you mix a secondary color with a secondary color, you mix purple and green, or you mix orange and green, or you mix purple and orange, what color do you get? Brown. You hear a lot of YouTube artists say, oh, we don't want to make mud. Well, that's what happens when you mix secondary colors. They make mud. So I'm trying to avoid that. I get some brownish stuff down here at the bottom of her tail when I'm trying to put the purple shadow on. It mixes with the green, turns brown. So I'm fighting that because, well, what I need to do is let the paint dry and then put my second coat over the top. But then I can't blend it as well. I can't blend the lines in as well. And so then I try to blend the lines with the paint being slightly wet, but then it turns to brown. So that's my one struggle that I'm having with this challenge of having the 3 secondary colors being the colors of the tag. Brown, brown, brown. And you know I don't like brown. But I just keep at it until I'm satisfied, and that's basically what the rest of the video is me just, painting. I'm painting and blending and painting more and adding different colors here and there. I start out with the orange in her hair, and then I end up adding different colors and changing it and going over it, and, the fun stuff. It's the fun stuff. At one point, my kid is in there, and you might see his hand come in the frame briefly, very briefly. He says there needs to, or there it was. It says there needs to be another curl right there. I saw it just really, really quick. You had to be fast. But he was like, that's not symmetrical. You need to put another curl right there. Which I did end up doing. I decided he was right. That was kind of funny. I decided to put some of the turquoise around the edge because this is supposed to be water. And then I blend it back out with the green. But then I've covered up some of my spots, so then I have to go back in and take some of my spots out with the stencil again and the baby wipe. That's a Crafter's Workshop stencil, and I'll put a link to it below. It's a very useful stencil. It has a lot of different designs on it in like circular type shapes. And then I decided to use some of the white gesso and just to add some more even brighter spots all over to add more visual texture. Just using the white gesso through the stencil instead of removing paint through the stencil. And I especially like that one that's kind of little cutout circles. It really looks like scales on the bottom of her. So I dry that layer, and then I go back in with more paint. This time I've mixed white gesso and a little bit of pink to brighten up her face a bit and add some highlights to her forehead and the bridge of her nose and her chin, where the light would be hitting and making them stand out a little bit more, because it was getting a little bit dark. And then I add in a little bit of yellow, I add in a little bit of orange, just making it more interesting. Got to keep adding orange because orange is one of the colors I'm supposed to be using. Then I decide to add some highlights to her hair using that yellow. It's a very bright yellow, very sunshiny. I think it's called lemon zest or something. I don't know. Squeezed lemon. No, that's squeezed orange. I don't know. Funny colors, but I'll list them down below in that box that says see more, so that if there's any colors or products that you want to use, you'll know where to find them. On Amazon, of course, unless they're not Amazon, but really, does anything not get sold on Amazon? I don't think so, because that's where I buy all my stuff. It's pretty funny. I'm not sure when I started doing online shopping, but I don't know. I'm not going to no dang store. I can buy it, and it'll come in 1 or 2 days, and, right off the Amazons. Those Amazons, those big women, are packing boxes for me. I don't think it's actually in the Amazon. And I don't think there are actual Amazons working there either. So I'm not sure why it's called that. But I found out one of my cousins works for them in Seattle. Not sure what he does. But I found that out. Like, you're smart. Amazon is good. So I'm continuing to use the baby wipe to just kind of blend the paint when it starts to get too gloppy, because this paint is my paint. It wasn't originally like this, but my paint is getting gloppy in the bottle, in the jar, whatever it is, tub. I probably should be done with it, but I'm too cheap. I'm just continuing to add layers of paint, blend, add more layers of paint. Just keep doing this until I'm happy, which took a while. I think this tag, strangely, considering it's just a tag, it's a big tag though, it's not a little one. I think it took me like an hour and 45 minutes because I just kept fussing with the paint and repainting and going over things and, adding more colors and deciding I didn't like that and painting over it, and yeah. But I was having fun, so it didn't matter how long it took. I wasn't paying attention to the length. I only noticed the length when I go to edit the video, and I like to keep myself to 20 minutes if I can. So when I'm editing, if it took me, a few hours, I'm like, oh no, how am I going to get that to fit down into 20 minutes? That's when I noticed how long it took me. But when I'm in the zone, it just does not matter. So I had put more paint over my cute little scales when I was doing more paint and blending. So I decided I needed to get more white gesso and add my scales back in. And then add some other things from this stencil, which is a very useful stencil, to add more texture. I decided to use that one that looks kind of like little lines on the fin part of the tail with some purple to look more like fins, They have those little lines through them. So I'm just going around adding texture here and there. And cleaning up where I made a splotch with my baby wipe. So I'm getting pretty close to being done painting. I add a little bit more purple to her hair, which I kind of wish I hadn't done. But once I started, I really had to follow through with the whole thing. The purple really didn't need to be there. But it's purple, people, Purple people. So then, now that it's all painted, I'm going back again with my Stabilo All pencil. That's that highly reactive pencil that will draw over anything, and going back around the lines again to bring the lines back out. All except for the face. The face is too small for me to use the pencil. Even though I sharpened it, it's still too chunky for me to use on that little teeny tiny face. So you guys know what I'll do. I'll bring out the Posca pins. That looks better. So now I'm using the black Posca pin with the fine tip. And I still haven't gotten any of those extra fines. I know people have been getting them. And I probably want at least a black and a white extra fine. I think they may be coming in a set though. I'm not sure. But I do want them. I want to try them out. It's just I need to get some money. That's the thing about working on YouTube. You don't really make any money. And so then you're using up all your supplies and not getting any more. I decided to give her green eyes because of, the green, violet, orange challenge. So I used one of my multicolor Poscas with the medium tip for that. And then also the lips, I used the pink one out of that multiple set of Poscas that I have with the bullet tips, the medium tips. Because, of course, mermaids would have makeup and they would put on bright pink lips, right? Of course they would. And then my white, quick, sketchy line highlights that I like to do on my illustrations with my white Posca pen. That's the fine tip. You've seen it before and you'll see it again. I like to do that. And then I felt I need some splatters, so I put some titanium white acrylic paint and a little bit of water with my fan brush. And go around and tippy tap that all over the place to make some splatters. Add more texture. And then I decide glitter. So this is an iridescent glitter glue type stuff in a tube, and I'm putting that all around. I end up putting it in a lot of places, on her scales and her tail, on the seahorse, on the bubbles, on her eyes. And then I have these little shiny gems, and I decide that she's got a little crown and some earrings with these shiny stick-on gems, and more of the glitter glue in her hair. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.